Hey my Patriot friends, welcome back to Colonial Girl Liz. Before we get to today's video, make sure to comment, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you get notified when I post a new video. I post every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Let's get started with today's video. So before we get started with today's video, I just want to say I'm in a different location. I am in my family room right now. So, I just want to take a break from my bedroom because you guys have seen enough of my bedroom and what it looks like. So I'm going to be in my living room for today's video. But with that being said, make sure to subscribe and turn on your post notifications so you get notified when I post a new video. I'm telling you, anybody who's not subscribing is missing out on American history lessons. Well, today's not going to be a lesson. Instead of reacting to colonial music or reading up from my history book, my favorite history book in my bedroom, I am going to be doing I'm going to be telling you guys my favorite people from the Revolutionary War era. Not women, but men. So let's get right into it. So my first favorite person is Thomas Jefferson. He wrote, if any of you have learned about the Declaration of Independence in school, I'm in the 8th grade. I'm ready to go on to 9th grade. But if any of you have learned about him in school, you learned that he wrote the Declaration of Independence in July of 1776. But the thing is Thomas Jefferson, he had to write it with a headache, and he's very smart. He lived at Monticello with his daughter Patsy. He had tons of books. He loved to read. What else about Thomas Jefferson? Oh yeah, Thomas Jefferson was our third president, and he did the Louisiana Purchase. He purchased Louisiana. Back then, Louisiana was just like, I don't know if it was like it was like a territory or something, but he helped grow what we know as Louisiana today. Because back then, we only had 13 colonies. We didn't have, we didn't have 50 United States. And Hawaii was the last state. Hawaii's the 50th. But in Alaska, the 49th. But what was the first state? Delaware. Delaware was the first colony. And if you're thinking Vermont, Maine, or Florida was a colony, it wasn't. I mean, I used to think that too because I was only little, but yeah. Alright, on to the next person. My next favorite person is Paul Revere. Paul Revere was a silversmith. He worked in Boston. You can go to his house. What's so significant about Paul Revere is that he actually made a famous midnight ride. And fun fact, he didn't say the British are coming, nor did he say the regulars are coming, the redcoats are coming, the redcoats are coming. He said the regulars are coming, the regulars are coming. But yeah, he was a silversmith. He was born on New Year's Day of 1735. Him and Betsy Ross share the same birthday. But Betsy Ross was born January 1st, 1750, so she wasn't born until years after. Well, 15 years after. But, yeah. And the Midnight Ride was made on April 18th, 1775. He started at like 10 or 11 o'clock, and it went into April 19th, 1775. Fun fact, nobody knows who fired the first shot or where it was shot of the American Revolution. The Battle of Lexington and Concord. You can actually go and see that in Lexington, Massachusetts, in my hometown, my home state of Massachusetts. So, yeah. Alright, next person. This person, he was a general. He's known as the father of his country. He signed the Constitution. He didn't sign the Declaration of Independence. He lived in Mount Vernon, and he married Martha Custis. If you guessed George Washington, you are correct. So George Washington is one of my favorites because he actually was a founding father. He was a father figure. You know, he knew what he had to do to get the job done. He actually knew how to go about running the Constitution. And the Constitution is all about how our government should be set up and how they want the government to run, so that the executive isn't taking over the legislative or judicial, and the judicial is isn't taking over the executive or legislative, and you get my point, and vice versa, other way around. But yeah, so George Washington was really just like this really great guy. And another thing about George Washington was he had slaves at Mount Vernon, but he was very good to them. He didn't treat them like they did during the Civil War. Even though he was during the Revolutionary War, a century before, about approximately a century before, he knew how to run his not his plantation, but his farm. He had a half brother, Lawrence Washington, who died before he was an adult, I think. Yeah. And they're buried at Mount Vernon. Well, at least George Washington and Martha Washington is. And then, what else? You can go and visit Mount Vernon, which I've been to Mount Vernon. I've also been to Monticello. Go check out Monticello, home of Thomas Jefferson, Mount Vernon, home of George Washington. Alrighty, next person. This is the last and final person. He did the dangerous science experiment with the kite, the rod and the kite, and he put the rod through the key and tied it, and he put it in the lightning bolt. If you guessed Ben Franklin, you're correct. So the lightning bolt, he was trying to prove. I'm not a science nerd or anything. I'm a history buff, and history is my favorite subject. But I know that he was trying to prove that lightning was a form of electricity, but people didn't really think so. Back then, they didn't have like all these smartwatches and iPhones and light bulbs, which wasn't until Thomas Edison invented the light bulb later on. But yeah, we didn't have what we have today. We didn't have iPhones, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have TVs, we didn't have Amazon Echoes. We didn't even have Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or fast food restaurants. You know? And he was into science, he was into politics. That's why I like him, not for the science part, but for the politics, because he was a very smart person. He's the one who also, in Boston, he was born in Boston on Milk Street, and you can go and see the outside of his birthplace. Anyway, Ben Franklin, what did Ben Franklin do? Oh yeah, what was I going to say? Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. I just woke up. Or I woke up a while ago, but I'm having a brain fart. What did Ben Franklin do? Ben Franklin, like, they had fire department. I don't know if he made the fire. No, he didn't make the fire departments, but he made a bell so that any time in an area in Boston they had a fire, they could just ring the bell, and all they would have to do is get out of the building. It's not like now where you have fire alarms. They didn't have fire alarms back then. It's not like back then where they had fire alarms that it beeps and flashes like at school when you have to practice a fire drill. It's not like that. You actually had to ring a bell, and I would say, okay, fire, fire, and they would send like horse and carriages or hearses out, and try and save them from the fire. It's not like today where you can just call 911 and they'll be like, 911, what's your emergency? Hi, my house is on fire. They didn't have the telephone back then. That wasn't until Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876. Yeah, so that's all for today's video. Make sure you subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and turn on your post notifications, and comment, and turn on your post notifications so you get notified when I post a new video. I post every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Peace out, my Patriot friends.